Joining us right now to talk about this, Chris Horner. He's a senior fellow for the Center for Energy and Environment at the Competitive Enterprise Institute. He's also the author of Red Hot Lies, How Global Warming Alarmists Use Threats, Fraud, and Deception to Keep You Misinformed. So, also, by the way, the Politically Incorrect Guide to Global Warming and Environmentalism, which I love. The Politically Incorrect Guide to Global Warming is awesome. Chris Horner, thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you, Larry.
So these guys, it's kind of a buried lead. You don't see it on all the reports, but these people who were down in Antarctica who got locked into the ice, they were down there. They were all global warming aficionados, and they were there actually to measure the rapidly melting ice cap. What happened to these poor people?
Oh, they were trapped in 18 feet of irony, crushing irony, I think. As expanded as apparently the captain, according to contemporaneous notes, was telling them, look, the ice is trapping us here. It's time to stop playing grasshoppers. Other people do want to work. Get on the boat. Let's get us out of here. And this, if you can imagine a cruise of pajama boys, well, they all...
The pajama boy from Obamacare? That's who this is populated by?
Right, but the SS Inconvenient Truth with this crowd of pajama boys stayed on the ice, playing around. The ship got trapped. And again, they went out to find, wear pajamas, go looking for disappearing sea ice, get trapped in expanding Antarctic sea ice.
That's fantastic.
This is, as you know, pretty much an annual event, though it's been happening up in the Arctic recently, in our winter, and now in their summer down there. It is cultish. It's no matter what happens, it's proof of global warming, even as they continue going to look for disappearing sea ice and get crushed in what has been for several years expanding sea ice, fairly dramatically expanding sea ice. And nothing has dissuaded them. Some people have even posted from down there. This is apparently you may see sea ice here, but just over the horizon in Shelbyville, why it's all disappearing.
Yeah, well, this is what I struggle with this. And Chris, I want you to help me out because I know that there are people out there who they truly believe it. They believe global warming is real, and they believe that they can point to science that explains. It's way above my head. I'm just a simple man. I don't understand all this science, but they truly believe it. And then you hear anecdotal stories like the things that you're telling me, like the ice caps are thicker than they've been in decades. So, for the person who struggles, as me, I kind of sort of consider myself an agnostic because I can't really figure out what's truth and what's not. What do you say?
Well, first of all, it is largely people who desperately need to believe it, who cling like grim death to every man as agent of doom theory that rolls down the Autobahn. So this has to be true. It affirms their worldview. And they'll go on to the next one when this one goes away, but when events, dear boy, events make it plain that it's not sustainable. Their science is largely anecdotes. They will seize on you. The news cycle is full of jumping on the warmest Tuesday, second Tuesday in a non-leap year February, like they saw the image of the Virgin in the foam on their latte, proving man-made global warming. Climate change is real. That's what it does. Always has, always will.
Right.
Man-made global warming. They see proof of it in everything. That is, you'll notice, their science. It's not it's not the projections, because those are failing to come true on all fronts. It simply isn't that. Their science is computer model projections that are proved wrong when the future arrives, and anecdotes. So these were scientific researchers, they say. So just so you know where you're getting your science.
Okay, so here's another question for you, Chris Horner, and so along the same lines as Brian's question, because it seems like they keep changing the dynamic. First it was global warming, and then they called it climate change. And I want you to listen to this. Rachel Maddow, she's a smart person, but she obviously has bought into this, and this is how she describes this phenomenon.
I think global warming, it probably means extreme weather of all kinds.
Right. Well, how do you combat that? Global warming means extreme weather of all kinds. Don't we always have extreme weather of all kinds?
They'd like to revise and extend their remarks to cooling meant warming, meant change, meant now. Global weirdness meant now. Extreme weather, or I guess weather inequality.
So when Al Gore says Superstorm Sandy from 2012, November of 2012, is a perfect example of what we're facing right now due to increased carbon emissions, it's just bunk?
Yes, it is back to this anecdotal. If something happens somewhere, they will point to it as saying, they no longer say this, we predicted this. They say this is consistent with what one would expect in a warming world. They even say that about expanding Antarctic sea ice, okay? Their claims of increased trends in storm frequency, you name the storm, tropical cyclones, hurricanes, in any basin and so on, strength, severity, frequency, it's all proved not true. So now they say extreme weather events, that's it. And this one's stronger because every big storm seems like the biggest, even when with Superstorm Sandy, it isn't if you go back. So who caused all the rest of them? This is what happens. The problem is there will always be the cynical universe of people seeking to capitalize upon it, whether it's because they want to throw the witch next door in the lake because the crops failed and the babies died. She did it, and by the way, it happened because of climate change back then, or because you don't like somebody's lifestyle. There is a common thread running throughout this. There will always be people trying to seize upon this, whether or not it's to make a buck.
But it was just a couple of decades ago that the same kinds of scientists were telling us about global cooling was going to be the problem, right?
Yeah, and there was a consensus, and cooling is frightening. And then God, with a great sense of humor, as we're being reminded again, particularly with these matters, said, well, Earth's climate is cyclical, and here comes the warming. And you can always predict that cooling is going to happen because it's cyclical, and you can always predict warming is going to happen. It's the people who will seize on something going on and saying, for example, 2005, these hurricanes, this is the future is here. Give me this authority. Cede this freedom. Give me this money now. 2005 was a busy hurricane season, and it's been very, very quiet since. But you'll notice what they did is seize on what's going on and say, now you must, no time to act, can't even talk about the horror over your shoulder, must act now, sign here, details to follow. You'll notice that pattern with this crowd.
All right. Listen, great stuff, Chris Horner, as always, Senior Fellow for the Center for Energy and Environment at the Competitive Enterprise Institute. Also, I really do highly recommend the Politically Incorrect Guide for Global Warming. By the way, is it true that ship down there was actually powered by the occupants' own sense of self-satisfaction?
Yes, indeed it was.
I thought it was. Thanks for that, Chris.